What's up, everybody? Thank you so much for listening. I wanted to put this in the top of the show. Make sure you subscribe on Patreon, patreon.com/Brennan Tassif. Check out the merch store at brennantcomedy.com to get your ex-drinking buddy merch. Subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. As always, we're coming to you live from Gotham Production Studios, and I hope you enjoy the episode.
Grab me a beer and grab me a coke. We bout to sit for an hour, bullshit and tell jokes. And please don't mix it up, cause he done sobered up. Brennan T Comedy on your social media feeds. And Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy. Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy. Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy. Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy. I am your host, Brennan Tassif. If you're new to the program, quick rundown of the show. I used to be everyone's favorite drinking buddy. It was my favorite thing to do, hang out with friends, get drunk, do drugs, get in all sorts of trouble, and then reminisce about those crazy stories. I am sober now, but it is still one of my favorite things to do, to hang out and reminisce about the crazy old days. Most weeks I'll be joined by a guest. This week is no exception.
Woo.
All the way from New York City, Claire Driskill. What's
Hello.
up?
Hi, guys. How are you? And there's not multiple people.
You can talk to them.
Hi. How's everybody doing?
How are you?
I'm doing so well. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you so much for coming on. I wanted to have you on. I've seen you on stage a few times. And you have some crazy stories that you talk about. And I was like, got to get her on the podcast.
I feel that Florida and rural Ohio have a lot of similarities. I'm originally from rural Ohio.
Yeah.
So.
Which is interesting because my whole family is from Ohio.
No way.
Everyone in my immediate family, as far as parents, aunts, uncles, everyone went to Kent State.
Can't read, can't write, Kent State. Hey.
Yeah, everyone grew up in Ohio. And then my
yeah.
dad, 1988, my dad got transferred to Florida. So I was technically born at Akron General, but I was only there for like 2 months, and then I moved to Florida.
Brendan, I'm from Youngstown.
Look,
That's like
gang,
20 minutes
gang.
away from each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Oh, Youngstown, it's a rough neighborhood.
It's something, all right. Yeah, Youngstown is, we're here now, though,
Yeah.
so it's okay.
Youngstown, stand up. I want to, before we get too far into anything, plug everything up front, your social media, any shows you have coming up. This will come out Monday for everybody, so let them know.
Cool. I am Intense Pear 667 on TikTok and Instagram. I'm actually taking a slight break from stand-up and switching to sketch, but
Okay.
I will be participating in the People's Improv Theater Sketch Fest in October, so watch out for that.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Yeah, very fun.
So I wanted to ask, how did you even get into comedy, theater, sketch, the whole thing? Because
Sure.
I ask all my guests this, and I'm sure my listeners are sick of me saying the same setup, but it's a very niche kind of a thing.
To get into comedy?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Yeah,
it
for
is.
sure.
And then the more you're in it, because I've been in it for a long time, and the more I'm in it, I'm realizing like, oh, this is the easiest barrier of entry into show business.
100%.
So there's a lot of people. And it's so funny because like now during the writer's strike, I have some friends that are actors, and they're like, I think I want to try stand up.
I
And I'm
give it a
like,
shot.
and then, I mean, I have the whole bit about them looking at the thing I've dumped my life into, and they're like, yeah, that doesn't look so hard.
Yeah, no, I could get on stage and
I'm
do a
attractive.
type 5. Yeah.
People laugh at me.
Yeah, for sure.
So how did you even find, especially in rural Ohio, because there's a
Right.
lot going on there that's
yeah.
not good.
That's not stand-up. So
It's more laid down.
It's more, hey! A lot of stand-up material though. So I am an attention whore and have been from a very young age. I am the 12th out of 14 kids. And so straight out of the gate, I was fighting for any form of attention that I could get. I know that you did theater growing up.
Yes.
Yeah. So immediately I did my first show. I was in Annie when I was 4 years old. And I was like, oh, people are paying attention
You were
to me.
Annie?
No, I was
Oh.
Pepper, the mean orphan.
There you go. That makes sense.
yeah.
That checks out.
So
How did you even get into theater though? Being that young, were your parents like, we need someone to basically babysit, or were you
No,
like,
I
I want
begged.
Okay.
I
So
really
you knew
wanted
from
to be a part of
young
it.
age, you were like, I want people to look at me.
100%. Me and my siblings, we would put on like little plays.
Fuck
yeah, right. So we would put on little plays. We would write little plays all over the place. And then the high school that my older siblings went to was casting for Annie. And I begged my mom. I was really young. I was only 4 years old. Everybody else was already in school or in middle school or whatnot. But yeah, I was just kind of a natural, and they let me on stage. And from then, In high school, I got really into speech and debate.
Okay.
Yeah, I was a big speech and debate kid, which made me the coolest human ever. So yeah, right. But I also, high school was an interesting time for me. And then after that, I go to college.
Where'd you go to college?
I went to Seton Hall.
I was going to say Youngstown State, but
no, sir. I couldn't stay.
So you went to Seton Hall?
I did.
That's that's a good school. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I was very lucky to get a scholarship.
What'd you get a scholarship for?
Performance,
Yeah.
of course. Yeah, no, and also some like academic stuff. But
Fucking nerd.
I know. I mean, the speech and debate, it really is just a gateway to worse things, right?
But no,
So-
that's no. In all seriousness, though, that's awesome to have a full ride.
I did
for-
not. It wasn't a full ride.
Oh, okay,
I
I'm
wouldn't
sorry.
say that.
I apologize.
But no, totally fine. I'll take the compliment.
I say that because I was on a partial scholarship, so
Right.
sometimes I'll just be like, "Yeah, I went to FAU to play football. I was on a scholarship," and people were like, "Oh my god, that must have been," and I was like, "They paid for my books and my meal plan. Like,
Yeah.
I still paid for everything."
Right.
else."
Luckily it covered a lot. I was able to go to college and pay for it on my own.
Well,
I
especially
should say.
with your parents having 12 or 14 kids. That's
Yeah, it wasn't an option.
Yeah.
If you didn't get a scholarship in my family, like you weren't going to school.
So
basically.
were a lot of your siblings kind of trying to do the same thing? Were they like, athletes or academic? Like, were they trying to get out, or were they just kind of like, oh, this is life?
Every single one of my siblings has left Youngstown.
Yeah.
Hey, we're proud of that.
Shout out to the Driscolls.
Insane, right?
That's actually nuts.
Yes.
Because I know people who are like only children or have like 2 or 3 other siblings, and they're still in the same spot in Daytona that we left them at.
Yes. Yeah. No, I think that it was always kind of embedded in my siblings and I that we had to be smart and get some scholarships. I've had siblings go to Columbia University for free. I've had siblings get paid to go to Vanderbilt University. My youngest brother's currently at Boston University for free. My parents they bred us to be smart.
They instilled it in you very
They really
young.
did.
That's
yeah.
awesome.
I didn't grow up with cable or internet. I was really encouraged to participate in a lot of creative things growing up. So.
See, I know you said you have some stories, especially when it comes to the parental units, but that's actually really refreshing to hear, because so often you hear about people in situations where there's a ton of kids and the parents kind of don't know which way is up, and it turns into a mess. And then
It gets there,
there.
Brennan. Don't you worry.
I know, but the fact that you can just say on paper, like, everyone's out of Youngstown.
Yeah,
I mean, you're
still
like,
huge.
That's a win. That's
huge.
a win.
Still huge. So many people from my hometown. There's kids. I'm 23 years old. I know so many girls from my high school who have so many babies.
Yeah.
People are getting married already. It's like not, yeah. But
So you went to Seton Hall in Jersey?
I did. And at Seton Hall, I was a theater minor and creative writing minor and a film major.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And so I started doing creative writing minor, and I had a professor who was like, "Hey, dude, you write some creepy deepy stuff, and also it's funny. You should maybe try your hand at stand up."
So a professor.
A professor kind of did, and then pandemic happens while I'm in school. And I just started making TikToks. I started making like little goofy stuff, talking about my life. It was really prepping for stand up, and I didn't know it yet.
Yeah. But it's actually interesting you say that. You're not the first person on this show who said that exact kind of like, I was doing TikToks and it was fun and I was having a good time. One of my guests, it was JC Mendoza, a good buddy of mine, but he, friend of the show, he was doing Snapchats, like little silly because before TikTok, he was doing like silly Snapchats.
Yeah.
And his friends were like, dude, this is really funny. And like sending it to their friends. And then they're like, you should try to do stand up.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because I'm obviously much older than you. And I think constantly about how social media has been an impediment to stand up, where it's like now you're encouraging people to yell out, and hecklers are like, oh, I'm a part of the show, and you're burning material before it's ready, and there's all these things that are negative about it. But there is a huge positive. One, it helps people with obviously the art of telling jokes.
Yes.
And 2, the exposure.
Yeah, the exposure was a huge thing for me because I also didn't know I was funny. I know that's like a strange thing to say, but it wasn't until I started blowing up on TikTok that I was like, whoa, people like want to pay attention to me. That's crazy. Like,
Oh God, that must have been so exciting for you.
It was.
When the first
you're
video,
the 12th out of 14 kids. And
when the first video went viral, were you like, did you know? So I've got so many questions about this because I have friends that have blown up on TikTok, but I've never actually sat down with them to talk them because I'm just so happy for their success. I'm
Right.
I'm so happy for their success.
I do agree with you, though, that TikTok humor does not always necessarily translate well to stand-up, and that's something that I've learned.
Not at all. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because I mean, I've got a show tonight at a pretty big club, and I'm at that club. I mean, the listeners fucking know what it is, but I've had comics like real deal comics come up to me that I'm friends with, and they'll be like, "Hey, can you take so and so to like some mics or something?" Because they're huge on social media and TikTok and stuff, but then when they get on stage, they don't know stand up. So
the art
they're
of
just
editing.
And so they'll be like, like they're funny and we love them, but like, can you just help them? Like, take them to a mic so they can kind of get the feel for it.
Yeah.
So for you, when the first video goes viral, what is that feeling for you?
I was shocked. I remember the first video that went really...
How long did it take?
I started, it was March of 2020, April of 2020 maybe. And I started making it like when I had first gone home for the pandemic.
Yeah.
And it was a video about my neighbors hiding a meth lab in my family's barn growing up. And
that's on the list as well. We call that a good transition.
Here we go. Yeah.
I always ruin the transitions by calling them out, but I'm so happy when people do them so well.
Yeah, to get involved in it. Just jump right in.
So when you started the TikToks in March, April, or you went viral in March, April?
I started making them, and then I kind of quickly went viral. Just because I mean, I don't mean to say it like that. But
the algorithms changed now.
Oh, for sure. Definitely. It was so easy to go viral during the pandemic. Yeah.
That is one hilarious thing is I have a very good friend of mine. Shout out Zach Bennett, friend of the show, huge comic from Daytona, now lives in LA. Hilarious guy.
Yeah.
He does these hilarious videos, and they're not even meant to be funny, where he's just like walking around his hotel room, like when he's on tour, and he's like, "Yeah, I think TikTok just puts every video at like 200 likes now, so I'm just gonna do this, or 200 views now, and see what happens." And then he puts it up, 250 views, and then he'll put up a bit that's hilarious, 250 views, and he's like, "What the fuck is happening?"
Exactly.
So for you during the pandemic, this is when TikTok was like, "Oh,
really
we'll give them a taste. We'll give them a taste."
It was so easy. I thought it was like kind of easy. I mean,
so what? I'm sorry, I keep cutting you off, but I'm so interested. What happened? You post the video, and then how many views is like you're like, oh shit? Was it like instantaneous where you posted it and like 5 minutes later it's at like 1,000 views or 100,000 views?
I think it was over the span of a couple of days because it definitely like picked up some progress. And I remember getting like 50,000 followers in like one day, and I was telling my family, and they're like, and they're not like big social media people by any means.
No, you said no cable, no,
yeah. And so they were just like, what the hell? Like, what does that even mean? Exactly. Yeah, I remember one time telling my mom that like I gained like 88,000 followers in one night, and she was like, "That's nice, honey." Like it was just like, "Are
that's
these all your
career changing,
friends?"
mother.
Yeah. Like it wasn't. She had no idea what I was even fucking talking about. So
a few questions. What is it like when that happens? Like the feeling for you personally? Were you overwhelmed? Were you excited? Like
I was so over the moon. I was so excited at first
because you hadn't started stand up at this point.
No. I was. When did
that professor say that to you? Before or after the pandemic?
This was before.
Okay.
My sophomore year before the pandemic.
Okay.
No, I hadn't started any stand up or anything yet. I just heard that one thing from my professor, and then that had gone off. And so yeah, it was really, really exciting. It was like adrenaline rush immediately. But then I definitely feel like I got into social media for like the wrong reasons. Unfortunately, I was really just doing it for like the getting things to go viral and like the likes,
the gratification.
Yeah, absolutely. I say that I was a social media influencer, which I don't want to be. I want to be a comic who also does social media. Exactly. So my first time around on TikTok, my senior year of college, I got so anxious of it, and I just deleted everything overnight one night.
Wait.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was writing something down because I thought it was a good title.
Yeah.
A comic who does social media. What? One more time. You got overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And this was what year?
My senior year of college, so like
you were
2
back
years
in
down
New Jersey,
later.
or you're still?
Yeah. I'm in New Jersey. I'm finishing up my last year of college. This was like last year.
Yeah.
And
how many followers are you up to?
At this point, like 300,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you've gotten that in the course of 2 years.
At one point, TikTok did delete my account, and that took like a bust to my following, unfortunately.
So wait, when they delete your account, do you have to start from zero?
Yeah. But luckily,
I'm gonna throw up.
I know. know. It's so frustrating, dude. And at that point, I also, like, I'm from Youngstown. I was like a low income college student, and I was getting paid too. And it was a huge part of like my money coming into school.
How much were you at before that when they deleted it the first time? Where were you at?
I think so. I was at like 350,000 when they deleted it the first time, and then when I deleted it, it was 250,000. I think.
So they deleted it 350.
Yeah.
Did you? I mean, like you said, you're a college student. You know. Do you have any recourse? Are you calling like China? Are you like
absolutely?
What the fuck happened?
I went to like a very small schools too, so I posted on my Instagram story and I was like, "Justice for intense pair, everybody write to TikTok." And so like a bunch of my friends like wrote emails to them angrily being like, "Why is it deleted?" Da, 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 da.
Did they give you a reason?
Apparently I just broke community guidelines one too many times by like, I will also say, I think that
do they tell you when you like, do you know?
Every once in a while, but I would get, because my content for the majority of it was like kind of kid friendly. You know, I had like a younger following.
Yeah.
The video that like got
you're
me.
15. No.
I'm actually 11. No. But
no, but yeah, you're 23, and at the time you're like 21, so you're younger.
Yeah.
You have a younger.
I had a younger base for sure. And so I think that the video that ultimately like got the whole thing taken down was seriously me in like a Calvin Klein sports bra. And like TikTok was like, absolutely not. There's you
have younger viewers.
Exactly. And it's crazy
because I see some things on TikTok.
Exactly. But it was because it wasn't like my targeted content, I guess, that a lot of people just like flagged it and whatnot.
Oh, so that's the thing, is if it gets flagged. Yeah. So then you have these younger people who are watching you, looking up to you, yada yada, and then they see you in a sports bra and they're like, "This
God
is not
forbid.
what we signed up for."
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then you get deleted.
Yeah. Erased from the face of the earth. It was such a blow to my self-esteem too.
Not only that, but you're like financially.
Yeah,
are you
that
making? Because I've seen Ben Brainerd, who's a Florida comic who lives in LA now. Tours. He does the table on TikTok. He tours all over. But I know sometimes he'll put up these videos of like, this is what I make via and a lot of people think it's gross. I actually find it super educational and very
interesting.
Yeah, because he's like, I actually make the most money from Facebook and then YouTube. And so to see all that broken down. And he's got, like 2.5 million followers. So I'm assuming at 350,000, you're not making like an income where you could comfortably like live, but you are making money.
I mean, so TikTok itself doesn't necessarily pay the best. Sorry, TikTok. But brand deals are really where.
So were you doing that?
Yeah.
Okay, so you were making enough to.
I was working full-time all throughout college, and I was able to cut my shifts down to part-time.
Okay, see, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Which is all we're trying to do here.
Exactly.
If I can just go down 2 days a week at the restaurant.
It'd be phenomenal, right?
I'd love everybody forever. Subscribe on Patreon.
Please.
So, for the love of God, no. So the meth lab. This is the first one that goes viral.
Yeah, the meth lab.
I'm pretty good at this.
There you go. Oh, he's done it before. It's like he's a TikToker. No, but so when I was like 4 or 5 years old, I go to my mom and I was like, "Hey, I want to have a tea party," and she was like, "That's a great idea. Let's get all." And my mom's a very theatrical person.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So she was like, "Let's get all of your siblings and your dad really involved."
So it's gonna be like a 30-person tea party.
Exactly. But
Mom, this is a real party now. This is not.
It wasn't. Yeah, it was just like
there's 15 people here.
But she makes like all of my siblings get like a little bit dressed up. My dad is in jeans, a t-shirt, and like a blazer. Yeah, classic dad. Yeah.
Classic dad.
And so I'm pouring this like shitty ass tea, and all my siblings are sitting around the table, and then all of a sudden we just hear a knock on the door. FBI, everybody get down. And the SWAT team invades my house.
Oh my God.
Yep. In front of all
During
of
the
us.
tea party?
During mid-tea party. Yes. It was insane. It was off the hook. It was the craziest party I've ever been to. And so they arrest my dad in front of all 14 of his kids. And my mom is like,
is she freaking out?
Yes. She's losing her mind. She's like, "Tom, are you smoking weed again, Tom?" And my dad's like, "Please stop telling FBI agents I smoke weed."
Especially in Ohio.
Yeah, rural Ohio, geez. As it turns out, our neighbors were cooking meth in their house and garage. So my neighbors were distributing and dealing crystal meth. And they were on the run from the cops. They hid their meth lab in my family's barn. I grew up on a soybean farm.
Yeah.
They hid their meth lab in my family's barn. and then run from the cops overnight. And it
So
was
no one knew it was there.
No, because like it was like 11 a.m. It wasn't like later in the day or whatnot. And we didn't like have animals at the time, so we weren't using the barn. So nobody was like going out and checking. Yeah. So
Hey, have you guys checked the barn for the meth lab?
What are you doing? It's just part of the morning routine. Come on. Like, but yeah, so they arrested my dad. But it was very easy for him to prove, like, hey, that's not my meth lab. But yeah, that was the first.
And then you made
story.
a TikTok about this?
I made a TikTok about it. It was a put a finger down because I was and I was like, put a finger down if you ever saw your dad get arrested because of a meth lab that your neighbors hid. Yeah, right. And I was like,
and that was it.
Yeah.
And then your
I
life changed.
Yeah. And then I started. From that point on, the being one of so many kids really took off on TikTok.
So you just talked about that kind of stuff? Or were you guys doing skits, or like what was the thing?
I would do little skits. I would do little one-liner jokes. Again, I realized like I was prepping for stand-up.
Yeah.
I was writing little tiny like monologues, either about my life or about little jokes, little one-liners, and then I would it was really just me talking into a camera for the most part, or just doing like little skits.
Yeah, I want to ask you something, because this is something that's always been kind of interesting to me. When you, because you're obviously, like we said, you're like 12 years younger than me. So when you pull your camera out on your phone, do you, and this isn't shade, I'm not trying to be a dick, I honestly am curious about this.
Let's hear it.
Do you feel any sort of like, oh, I shouldn't have my phone out? Or does that just not register because you grew up always having a phone with a camera? Does that make sense what I'm asking? So like I'll be walking and I'll see something crazy happening and I'll go to pull my phone out and I'm like, put your phone away.
Yeah.
But does that, as a younger person who's like grew up around social media and TikTok and stuff, does that register the same way? Or when you see something, are you like, oh, I should record this?
It depends on the thing. I feel that I've definitely gotten better in my young adult years of like, put your phone away, Claire. Like, what the fuck are you doing?
Because like I had to do a video to like announce to all the listeners we were changing the release date, and I walked literally like 14 blocks away from my apartment into a very secluded area of New York.
Just to take
like,
a video?
Right, yeah, just because I was like, I don't want to be outside like, yo, what's up, guys?
Yeah. No, oh my God. I was never doing that in
okay.
public by any means.
Good,
yeah.
right.
My TikTok was in like the sanctity of my own bedroom.
See,
for the most
okay.
part. Yeah.
See, I'm okay, very good. That makes me actually feel so much better.
No, I was
So now we can talk
never-
shit about all the influence.
Exactly. No, I
was the same way, that my ex would be like, why don't you just, because I'd be like, oh, I got to get better at social media. She's like, just record stuff in the apartment. I'm like, yeah, but you're here and I feel weird doing that.
That became another weird thing for me because like people like these, again, I had a younger following and they'd be like, can we get a room tour? And I'd be like, I don't want you guys to see what my bedroom looks like. You know, it was a weird thing. Parasocial relationships are strange.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it dates back for me, even with podcasting, because I started listening to podcasts in like 2010. Ooh. So there are some comics that I've been listening, I almost said literally again, that I've been listening to for over a decade. And I feel like we're like the best friends.
Exactly.
Because I know everything about their lives, how they grew up, where they are, and it's so one-sided.
Yes, that's what ultimately led me to deleting it. I remember one time I made a video just being like jokey about a boy who had recently dumped me, just like saying like a couple little jokes about it. And I had kids, literal kids, commenting like knife emojis, being like, where does he live? What's his address? And I was like, that is too much. You guys are far too involved in my life. Like,
mount up! We're going after him. No, so you honestly, it just became overwhelming, and then you were like, I got to get out of here.
Yeah, I remember one night, I was just like watching my own videos, being like, wow, I hate this person, and it's myself. So that's not great.
Well, I mean, it's very self-aware.
Yeah.
That's a good thing to have.
For sure.
So when you delete it, going into your senior year, during your senior year, do you immediately start a new one, or are you just done?
I took a fat break until, honestly, like, probably a couple of months ago when I moved to New York. And now I like to say that I'm a comic who uses social media. But I do have like a couple followers again. And so my
Do
OGs,
people find you? Yeah, that's what I was going to, okay. So people are like, oh, she's back on.
Yeah. I got some intense pear stands. What can I say? No.
Is that what you call your fans, pear stands?
I should. That should be like our little family, as some refer to it as. Yeah. But yeah, I've had some, and it's crazy. I've had people like in person recognize me, which has been a really weird thing.
I had that from TikTok before.
Yes.
And it's not mine. It's, I was telling you before, I'm obviously friends with Burner, and she puts me on her Hannah on the Street stuff, which goes.
She's hilarious.
Yeah. Millions of views for like every single one.
Absolutely.
And I know the listeners are probably sick of it, but you'll enjoy it.
Sure.
I walked into the diner on 52nd Street where me and my ex lived, and I walked into the diner that I'm at all the time, and these 3 drunk girls like fell out of the booth.
Ooh.
And they were like, "Oh my God, you're the guy! You're the guy from Hannah Burns TikTok. We love you!" Because I was wearing my hoodie,
Hell
and so whenever I do Hannah's thing, I always wear my merch.
Mm-hmm.
Normally, I
As
wear
you
it to
should.
the studio, but I just didn't
Yes.
today. But I know I've got a bunch of different merch. Shout out to Billy Myers III, who did all the graphic designing.
Huge.
So I wear those on her on the
Yes.
TikToks. So because I wear those so often, but it's my merch, so I also wear it often just in general.
I used to wear my merch all the time.
Yeah, so I literally walked in the designer wearing my ex-drinking buddy hoodie with the big red logo.
I need to get one of those, by
And
the
these-
way. Yeah.
BrennanTComedy.com/merch store.
Heard.
And these girls like fell out.
I'm sure
of
it
the
wasn't
booth.
just the merch, though, Brennan. I'm sure that they
I
recognized
don't want to, but
that
it was just... but
darling face.
To
Come
your
on now.
point, I was so stoked. I was like...
Yeah.
I could literally jump out of my window when I get home and I'd be fulfilled. Like,
Right?
I got recognized in the streets of New York for doing something comedy related.
Exactly.
That's it.
It's a very, very cool feeling for sure. The first time I got recognized, though, was in my hometown.
I was going to ask. That's where we were going to go. So when you start doing the TikToks, because you obviously moved back, do you consider yourself to be back home, or do you consider yourself like, oh, I'm just here because of the pandemic, I'm going back to New Jersey as soon as this is over?
It was very short stint in Ohio.
So you go home, and then the reason I asked that is because were you like out and about and back in the community, or were you just kind of...
No, my family took that shit so seriously, the pandemic,
Okay.
So we were super isolated, and so that's why I feel like I maybe used that as an outlet to just like try to talk to someone. But yeah, no, I was home in Ohio for maybe like a month and a half, and then as soon as my lease started in my college house in New Jersey, I hightailed it back.
Okay, so you were only home for a month and a half.
Yeah, no.
How did you get recognized? Where? If you guys were super locked down, where was it?
It was at the Dunkin' Donuts drive-thru.
Yeah, it was.
Mm-hmm. I was getting Dunkin' Donuts for my family, and the person was just like,
Are you?
"This is so weird, but like, are you?" I think I've seen you like on TikTok, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's me." I mean, that's fair. And it's funny. I love when people say like, "Are you Intense Pear?" Because it's just like, that's me, all right.
I'm actually Claire Driskill. But...
Yeah, but I'll be Intense Pear to anyone. I prefer it that way. But I have gotten recognized in New York too, and that's been a fun feeling. I was a server for like 9 years. And this was very cool. I was waiting on a woman, and she was going through chemotherapy, and she told me that she had recognized me, and she specifically watches my videos as she's getting like treatment.
That's cool.
And she said it made her feel a lot better. And I was like, I'm gonna go and like cry a lot about this. But thank you so much. That was really good.
I had obviously nothing compares to that. That's awesome. But that feeling of like, oh, life is complete kind of a thing. I had someone who's pretty well known in the comedy community came into my restaurant when I wasn't there, and one of the servers was like, "Oh, we have a server here who does comedy," and they looked at them and they go, "Everybody knows Brennan," and they were there with like a bunch of like big comics.
Hell yeah.
And I don't want to say who it is. They said that right, and like to the server, they go, "Everybody knows Brennan," and it was that same kind of feeling though, where it was like, "Oh my god,
everybody does know me."
oh my
Thank
god,
you.
I'm able to cry."
Yes.
Mine's much more self-serving than yours. You're a
No,
saint, but...
come on. It's all the same.
So I wanted to get into some of these stories that you sent me, because you did send me quite a few.
Yeah.
So when it came to obviously growing up in a house with that many kids, a few questions. Were your parents strict? It sounds like they were a little bit more on the strict side, but with that many children, it's got to be hard to maintain discipline for that many people.
For sure. Well, I have a parent.
Okay.
Yeah. So my dad actually passed away when I was young.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Oh, it's okay. Thank you though. But my parents were strict for a while. We were like,
wait, it was just your mom.
Not only that, but it gets weird, man.
All right, let's get into it.
Yeah.
As much as you're willing to share with the
absolutely. No,
audience.
I talk about this in my stand up too, so it's all good.
Of course.
Yeah, that's all that we do. We put our shit out there. Yeah. Please, somebody validate me. But so my dad, when I was like 8 years old, was in a really bad car accident, which left him in a coma. And for the first 2 years, he was in the hospitals, but then my family ran out of money. and the American healthcare system is really cool, so they kicked him out.
So cool.
Yeah, right? It's awesome. And so
I was because of all my concussions, I was having like an episode a couple nights ago, and Tracy, my girlfriend, was like, well, what do I do? Like, what do we do? And I go, nothing. She goes, don't you want to go to the hospital? Should we make a doctor's appointment? And I go, I don't have health insurance, so we do nothing.
Yeah.
And she was
you
like,
can't. I don't want to pay $3,000 out of my ass.
She was like, wait, what? And I go, because it's in my brain, which means I have to automatically get MRIs and CTEs. That's $10,000 gone.
Yeah.
And then they could just go like, oh, you were just dehydrated. So it's like, we do nothing.
Yeah.
I'm going to drink a bunch of water, keep taking my supplements, and
what are you gonna
pray
do?
to God that everything's going to work out. So for your
Poor
dad,
man's medicine, truly.
Yeah. So for your dad, they get to the point where they're like, we can't keep him here anymore.
Yeah.
And so where he goes back home?
Yeah. So my mom and family makes the decision to move my dad home. I was like 10 years old at the time, and my mother and my siblings and I became my dad's full-time caregivers.
So is he, when someone's in a coma like that from an accident, he's just out? Like it's just almost like he's sleeping all the time? I'm sorry for being ignorant, but I have no idea what it's even like.
Fine. No,
because in the movies it's just like they wake up and they have a beard and they're like, oh, you were in a coma, and it's like, well, what happens?
So when he was still in the hospitals, they were trying. When you're in a coma, your brain is like actively trying to wake yourself up. So he was in rehabilitation facilities for a little bit at one point, where they were like trying to get him to reuse like his hand strength, or like he had a trachea in his throat at one point so that he could try to start talking again. And the first thing that he actually said,
so he's awake.
No,
but he's
you're
out, but they're
very
trying.
much so trying to. Yeah, but you're not.
Oh, that's like that's like when I get sleep paralysis. This
exactly.
Is my worst
it's
nightmare.
kind of like what I was explained to as a child is my dad could still see, he could still hear everything, which was really fucked up that he could still hear everything to me. That is sad. And also my dad was a very educated man. He was a lawyer. So all of a sudden he's like practicing law, and then he has the motor skills of an infant. Like it's wild situation. And he was like fully conscious, but he just couldn't use his body.
That's insane.
Yeah. It's a really weird thing. But I'm also like not the most educated on comas. There's way different levels to it, some which a lot of people don't realize. One time, this was genuinely hilarious to me. I was seeing a guy for a while, and I was trying to explain this to him, and he goes, well, it doesn't really sound like a coma. Are you sure it was a coma? And I was like, this was a lived experience for 5 years, sir. Like, just because it doesn't sound like one to you, I don't know.
It's my favorite when people do that to me.
Yeah.
When I talk about my alcoholism or something, and they go, well, I don't think it's that. And I go, oh, no, it happened.
Thank you so much.
I was there.
Yeah.
But
I was
appreciate
there.
it.
Yeah. It's crazy.
It happened.
Yeah. But like, it's definitely not the same. Like, all comas across the board are not the same. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. And so my dad, when he was in the rehabilitation facilities, they were like trying to get him to regain, and he could like move his arm slightly up. He could like the first
So
word,
while he's out, he's doing these things.
trying to. Yeah. And so the first word he actually learned to re-say was pear, which was my nickname, hence intense pear. So that was a big moment for me.
Obviously your dad's favorite.
Who's to say?
Your dad. Actually, he was the
literally,
one who said it.
Yeah. But then after 2 years, he has another stroke, and so he loses all progress.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. And then my mom.
And so in that 2 years, and I know I keep repeating this, but in that 2 years,
please.
he's out, and you guys are trying to help him relearn these things while he's not, obviously his brain is active, but physically he's out.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. He, so my mom, we move him home. Me and my siblings become his caregivers. And that was weird. That was strange.
This is after the stroke?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That was weird. That was strange because like my mom still had to go to work again.
Mm-hmm.
We were not a wealthy family. Yeah.
That's what happens.
Yeah. And so my mom, she wasn't even like working. She would just work at the schools that we were going to. And so my dad would like fully come out into public, and it would take 3 or 4 of my siblings to move him from his hospital bed in the living room to a fully recliner wheelchair that like fully supported his body from his head to his toes. Then we had a handicapped van.
But he was still out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Real
that
Weekend
was
at
weird.
Bernie's situation.
Somewhat. Yeah. That might be like a new like little skit I write. My dad was basically just Weekend and Bernie's. But
this is dad at graduation. He's got like a hat on, like, I'm sorry.
we kind of did do that though. Like, no,
we shouldn't make light of the situation.
We can definitely make light of the
we're
situation.
comics,
It's what he would have wanted. But yeah, that was like a weird thing because
He's like, I didn't even like that hat.
Why did you put me in that? Jeez.
Give me a better hat.
Please. But like that was strange because kids at school could then see it.
Yeah.
And that was not great
Kids
because
aren't
kids
awesome.
are assholes.
Yeah, most kids.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Especially
oh,
in
yeah.
Youngstown.
Oh yeah. Very ignorant kids
Yeah.
for sure.
So how long was that? You said 5 years. So
5 years
2 years in the
total.
hospitals and then
3
3
at
years back home.
And then my mom finally was like, his health isn't getting any better.
Yeah.
We should pull the plug on New Year's. The ball dropped and so did my dad's heart rate. Anyway,
New year, new me.
Heyo, I'm a single mother now. And so yeah, so my dad passed away when I was like 13.
God, that's
all good.
I know, but that's just that's an intense way to go.
For sure, a crazy way to go, and that definitely left a long-lasting effect on my family. Unfortunately, my mom turns to alcoholism. And so towards like
now, as for the kids, because we're talking about all this to say like how the discipline and stuff works. So then your mom starts drinking, obviously, because she just went through a traumatic experience for the last 5 years.
Right.
The kids, and you don't have to out any of your siblings. There's 14 of you, so you can just keep it vague.
Right.
But did any of your siblings have the same reaction where they started just self-medicating with drugs and alcohol and everything?
Later on, I feel that perhaps, but maybe not in that
Okay, so
time
not
period.
immediately, yeah.
Especially because a lot of my siblings, like I'm the 12th out of 14, not all of them were home.
Yeah,
a
that's
lot
true.
of them were moved out.
Well, and that's the other thing too, is, and this is something I've realized just growing up, is I'm very good in chaotic situations. It's the little things that get me. So like when things are crumbling, I'm
Yes.
like, let's go, let's do
Yes.
it. And it's the same thing. That's why people like us are good in restaurants and stuff. It's like when
Yes.
everything's falling apart, I'm there. But it's like the little things, like the server who's supposed to relieve you is supposed to be there at 3 and they don't come until 4. And then you're like,
come on, man.
this fucking kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Or like, you have a show and then you think you're going up first, so you book something else. And then it turns out you're going up last. And you're like, that's kind of shitty.
Yeah.
It's those like little
stuff like
that
that.
over time, I'm like, fuck this. I'm going to have a drink. But the big things, I was always like, no, this is what I'm built for.
Yes. I'm someone who like, I think it takes me a really long time to process things. So when I'm in the environment, I'm fight or flight mode.
Yeah,
and it's usually
always.
fighting.
Yeah, always.
But now that I'm like a young adult and 23 years old and I'm finally for the first time looking back at this, I'm like, oh no, this was so fucked up.
That was traumatic.
Yeah. It's like, oh, I was just like living for so long. But
we
I
all
wasn't.
initiated, aren't we, Bruce?
Yeah.
A little Bane action for you.
Hell yeah.
But that's the thing is, again, it's when things are, and this for my sobriety was a big deal. So I'd get sober, and then after like 6 months, everything would start coming back together, and my ex-fiance would come home, and everything would be good. And subconsciously, my brain would be like, "Fuck this!
No,
like everything's gonna fall apart eventually. We might as well
I'm
make it
huge
fall
on that.
apart."
I'm huge on self-destruction.
Yeah, so I would just smash everything with a hammer.
Yep.
And it's been one of the hardest things, and I talk with my uncle about this all the time. One of the hardest things in the last a very difficult thing in the last 5 years of my sobriety has been maintaining some level of serenity. Like, it's fine that everything's just okay. Like, there's not a huge up, there's not a huge down, and that's fine. And like, the audience knows this, but when I had Joe List on, he wrote this line in his movie 4th of July, which is everything's going to be okay. And if it's not, that's okay too. And that's something that's very difficult for me because, like you're saying, when I'm in these situations, I'm like, this is why we play the game. Let's fucking
keep
go.
living. Yeah, you just keep going.
Yeah, just keep pushing through. So when that happens, everyone in your family, you were saying, kind of like buckles down.
Yeah.
When was the first time that you actually like tried something?
Tried like a drug or alcohol?
Yeah, like just tried to like not even that, but just like try, because obviously everyone's kind of rallying together. Like this is a traumatic experience. When was the first time where and this might have been while your father was still alive, when was the first time you were kind of like, actually, fuck this, I want to go do that?
So this is a crazy little thought that I remember having. I remember it was very much so towards the end of the coma, and I was like lying in our side yard And I had like a dandelion. You know how like when dandelions, the yellow starts to go and all the seeds like turn white or whatever?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I was always yeah. And then if you get all the seeds off, you make a wish.
Yeah.
Wishes have always been very important to me.
I was always, you make a wish and then you try to blow all the seeds off for the wish to come true.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, Brennan. Same. Got it. That Northeastern Ohio brain, you know. All we got is wishes. But so I've always like, when my dad was in the coma, I made a deliberate switch in my head that every single wish I ever got was, I wish my dad would wake up. Mm-hmm. But I remember it was towards the end and I was like laying in the grass and I was for the first time making realizations like, oh, my sisters, when they're like my older sisters, when they come to visit, they like cry a lot. Like this is sad. And also I would hear my mom on like the phone with debt collection companies all the time. And I was like I was starting to put things together and I wasn't so naive anymore. I was like 11.
Yeah.
You're
growing up.
Exactly. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to make this wish. And I blow them all off of the dandelion. And for the first time in my head, the wish wasn't, I wish dad would wake up. It was, I wish dad would pass away. Because at this point, I was starting to realize like, this isn't normal. Yeah. And like, this is not good.
So that was the first time where you were kind of like, actually, this isn't.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's heavy, dude.
I was a kid. Yeah.
You're 11.
I know. Yeah. So it was a crazy, and that is something that I think of often. Yeah. Of like, wow, I was thinking of some real heavy stuff.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because I talk about it on stage all the time. Like I've got very dark jokes and they're funny to me and to like people like us. But then it's just like I did a whole bit about like the heroin dick pic joke that I love to do, but it never plays in rooms because it's like, you talk about a woman overdosing on fentanyl. It's like, yeah, but after I sent her a dick pic, and that's hilarious.
That is hilarious.
I think it's
sorry.
hilarious.
I also think I try.
But people get so upset.
So upset. I've tried to do coma content. I've tried to do dead dad content. And people are so uncomfortable. And I'm like, okay, motherfuckers, imagine what it was like living through it. Though.
Well, I have people that I know that are close with me, like, you know, family basically. And I will start telling a story, just not even a story I think is bad, like a true story about like some trauma or something that has happened. Because someone will be like, Brennan, how many times did you get arrested? And I'll go, 8. And they go, 8? And I'm like, yeah. And they go, because they're family, but you know, nobody tracks your arrest when you get arrested that much. So they'll go, wait, what were they for? And I'll start like listing them off. And then there'll be someone else who I love dearly that will be like, okay, that's enough. Like, let's not talk about this stuff anymore. And I'm like,
what are we supposed to do with it? Let it sit in my head forever?
What are we going to do?
That's how you know some people just can't hang.
Yeah.
You know?
So you go, we got to get back on track.
Sorry.
No, it's my fault. So you go to Seton Hall.
Yep.
And then when you get to Seton Hall, are you, because growing up with that many kids, and then obviously you were saying you went to public school and everything.
No, I went to Catholic school my whole life. But I went to like inner city Catholic school, and it wasn't like nice.
So it's not like,
and the government paid for my siblings and I to go.
Okay, but you still went to a school where there were other kids and stuff. You weren't homeschooled.
No,
because a lot of times with that many kids, they just homeschool.
It's a natural thing that people ask me for sure.
So you were around people and stuff. Did you? When did you start like partying or like doing drugs or like getting in trouble or anything like that?
I was a bad kid.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah. I drank for the first time in the hearse at my dad's funeral.
Okay, so 13.
Yeah. My siblings handed me whiskey and I was like, yep, this is good. So in high school, I remember smoking weed for the first time the day I graduated 8th grade.
Because you're not, so you smoked weed before you drank?
Yeah.
So
weed is a big thing in my family too. It's like,
yeah, cool. You're, Tom, are you smoking weed again? I remember. See, when you talk, I don't just listen. I listen.
Yeah.
So you smoked weed. What did you like better, the drugs or the weed or the booze?
I've always been, I've never really, again, my mom with the whole alcoholism thing, I've kind of always had a handle on my drinking, but drugs is something that I like a little bit too much.
Got it.
For sure. And so that's something that I definitely feel I have abused in the past.
So you smoke weed and then you try drinking. When you get to high school, are you still at the Catholic school in high school?
Yeah.
So are you are there parties on the weekends? Like, how does that work in Youngstown?
Yeah. Mostly Friday night is football games.
Goddamn right it is.
Oh yeah.
Just so everyone's listening, football is, and some of you might remember this, but football is huge in Ohio.
Embedded in Northeastern Ohio.
Only reason I played football was because football meant so much to my dad.
Yeah.
Even though I was a Florida kid, I grew up in Florida. I literally, from 2 months old until I was 31, I was living in Florida. 32. So like and football's huge there too. So it was an easy transfer for my dad when he got there. He's like, "You're gonna play football," and everyone's like, "Yeah, of course you play football." But for a lot of you listening, especially in the Northeast, because we have a lot of listeners in New York, no one in New York gives a shit about it.
No,
it's life.
It is.
Friday Night Lights, it takes place in Texas, but it's not a joke. Ohio, Florida, California, Texas, Tennessee.
Yeah, big.
Football is life.
Football is huge in the Midwest.
So you would go to the games on Friday nights.
But I also was always working again because my family had like no money growing up.
When did you start in the service industry?
14 years old.
Okay.
I got my first job.
As a host,
Yeah.
I'd assume?
Yeah, at the restaurant that all my other siblings were working at.
What restaurant?
It was called Aunt Janetta's Cafe and Catering. Shout out Tony and Phyllis Olin. Great people.
Shout out.
Huge shout
out. So
out.
it was just like a mom and pop place?
Mom and pa, a little Italian restaurant for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I got my first job because, again, all my older siblings were working there and they all worked there throughout high school and whatnot. And so one day, one of the like hosts or servers called out and my boss, Phyllis, was just like, yeah, send in the next one. Like, who's next? Like,
send in the next one.
Yeah.
So you start working there. So on Friday nights, you're not going to the games. You're working.
Sometimes. I mean, like.
Did you care about football? Was it a thing for you?
No.
Okay.
God, no. I was
so.
not. I don't even know the rules. And I grew up in Northeastern. My younger sister is huge on.
For
She
a
went to
second,
Ohio
I was
State.
like,
So,
okay. Yeah. For a second, I was like, are we going to be like
besties?
best friends?
Brennan.
I was like, we're getting along
I'm
so well. And
sorry.
then you were like, no, I hate football. And I was
No,
like,
I just I liked basketball more. It was more basketball.
I bet you did.
Yeah, of course. I played football though. I played football growing up. Fun fact. Flag football.
Oh, really? Oh, it's like an organized league?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you meant
schools.
I thought you meant like, oh, we went outside and threw the ball around.
No,
I was like, that doesn't count.
No, I played flag football at 5 and 6 years old. I was the only girl.
Wow.
Yeah.
So your
little feminist icon.
Let's talk about your little sister. She loves football. She went to Ohio State.
She does. Yeah, she's a big football fan. What up, Annie?
Shout out Annie. No,
yeah.
my girlfriend's listening right now. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Come on.
She's 20 years old. So Friday nights.
Yes.
We're
Okay.
back.
So Friday night. That Friday night football game is the first time I was a freshman and
in high school. You're a freshman,
school,
and
this girl named Julie, who I wanted to impress, I wanted to seem really cool. She was like, "Here, take this," and it was a pill, and I said, "Okay," and I popped it. Yeah, and she was like, "Do you know what that was?" And I was like, "No," and she goes, "It was Percocet," and I was like, "Cool."
That is cool.
So cool.
I don't know if
so
you guys
cool.
have ever done Percocet, but it's actually really cool.
Yeah, but not when you're at a Friday night football game in Youngstown,
you're 13
Ohio.
years old.
Yeah, no. So that was the first time I remember doing a drug that was other than weed.
Oh my God, what was that like? Were you scared?
Terrified. I remember I thought I was seeing Pokemon, like the anime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We all know who Pokemon are. Is that anime?
And I was supposed to be going home with my siblings, but they obviously couldn't know that.
Yeah.
And I also was drinking because it's
Well, you can't do Percocets without drinking.
obviously not.
That's the old Hannibal Buress joke.
Love that guy. So I had to pretend to be sick at the game and then go sleep over a friend's house or something.
It'll get your stomach the first time.
Right? Yeah.
Just like heroin.
So then it was just kind of then I smoked a lot of weed in high school and I would experiment with psychedelics and whatnot. But
you seem like you would experiment with psychedelics.
oh hell yeah. Yeah, I was big on psychedelics.
You have a rat tattooed on your arm.
Fuck yeah. Only a bitch who loves shrooms would get a rat tat, you know?
Right?
Yeah.
A rat tat.
Yeah.
So when you get to Seton Hall, do you continue experimenting and stuff?
Yeah. I think so. Seton Hall is also a very Catholic wealthy school.
It's a well-to-do kind of a place.
Yeah. And a lot of the people there were not
down with your lifestyle?
Well, I at the time was like, I'm so different from these people. Like, they don't get Youngstown, they don't get me, you know. So I find the first person who sells me drugs, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna date you. So my college boyfriend was my drug dealer. Because
a tale as old as time.
Obviously, yeah. Because I was like, none of these people get me. Like, they don't know what it's like to come from so I continued.
Did he get you?
No, obviously not.
Obviously.
He was just getting me high. So I continued to surround myself with like some negativity, I guess. But I will say, what was always like though I was partaking in some bad stuff in high school and whatnot in college, I was also a fucking nerd. Like, I've always been a theater kid.
Which we've established.
Exactly.
So were you still reading a ton and getting good grades and stuff?
No, not in college. Okay. But I still was doing speech and debate, and I still wanted to be doing theater.
Oh, because you wanted to be,
Yeah. And so what I say, like, my saving grace is that, like, I've kind of always felt like I've been a part of, like, these two worlds all my life of just, like, you know, I know. Yes. Yeah. Like, I love theater. I can get along great with theater kids. I am a theater nerd.
I'm a jock who cries when I watch Star Wars.
Exactly.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And then, like, frat boys still want to kiss me. So it's like...
Me too.
I bet a lot of them did, Brennan, to be honest. They should really address some things.
They did. So you live basically these parallel lives.
Yeah. And I think that what really pulled me out, especially as a somewhat recently, has been surrounding myself with more of like the nerdy people. I still have like that bridge of like the outside world that I definitely need, because these people, like, they're the ones who don't get it. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. Like, I was at one point seeing this guy when I first came to New York. I keep talking about like men I'm seeing. But there's
shouts out, listeners. Instapair 667. Slide in the DMs, you guys.
Please no. I need to be taking a break. I've been talking about them far too much. But I like told him about, I know that you've been to mental hospitals.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, institutionalized. You're type 2 bipolar, right?
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Same. Manic. So he was a boy that I met through like improv. And I remember telling him about going to the mental hospital, and he was just...
Yeah, people don't get it.
No. And so I still very much so feel I need my other lifestyle friends, but I feel I've been doing a really good job recently to surround myself with a lot of people who don't partake.
Well, and that is the one thing about being a comic, especially in New York, is there's so many, I'd say it all the time, broken toys. Like, there's a lot of us who are broken toys. Yeah. And so it's good because I can get the best of both worlds in that environment. Because not only are there people who are like myself broken, but there's also people who are sober or suffer from addiction issues and stuff. So it's like it's a great environment to be in, because I never feel like an outcast. Because I can call someone on the phone. A lot of those people who have been on this podcast, I can call them on the phone and be like, I think I'm going to jump out of my fucking window. Like, I don't know what to do. And whether it's about sobriety or my comedy career or my addiction or all of those things mashed together into one like manic episode, they get it because they've been on that side all the time.
Yes.
So that is a fun thing, because I do try to surround myself with like better people. But like I said, especially like at the gym and stuff, it's like, it's like, oh, you don't understand.
No,
like,
you're healthy. That's weird. What's that?
People are like, oh, because I go to the gym 6 days a week, but it's like, it's not fun.
No,
I do it because I'm an addict, and like that's the thing that I've become. I've replaced it with.
Yeah, and you need that replacement.
Yeah, it's like this. I just like being the strongest person in the room. If I can't be the most fucked up, I'm going to be the most fucked up. You know what I mean? So for you get to Seton Hall, and then you live this parallel life, and then you come to New York. I wanted to ask you about the New York clubbing incident. Because you had put that on there, and since we've kind of parlayed this into you coming into New York, let's talk about it.
Sure. So
when you say club, do you mean like?
Yeah, I was. That was me. That was exactly what I was doing, man. Yeah, cute. Hey. So when I was in Jersey, I wasn't that far from the city. So my friends and I, who were
Jersey's not that far.
Can you believe it?
All these comics talk about it like it's on the other side of the world.
Truly, it was like a 45-minute commute. Not that bad. So when I was my senior year of college, I started clubbing in New York City, which is a wild thing.
Such a dumb sentence.
Those were the people who were not doing improv. The club.
I don't like anything about clubs.
No, they're terrible. It's not a good place.
And for you to be like, yeah, I decided I'm gonna be like a club girl.
No, I didn't want to be.
Oh, don't be like,
called my name.
I went ironically. No, you did not. You were like,
no, I wanted to go to the clubs. Are you kidding me? Yes, I wanted to live my best life.
Let's do X and go.
Hey, no, yeah. So
you guys do MDMA. You just don't know ecstasy.
And that was a weird thing though, because it was like, when you are a young female, this was a thing that I realized very fast. When you're a young female going to clubs in New York City, you are the product. I remember, yes, I remember waiting in line with my friends. We were with our promoter and the guys next to us.
What do you mean? What? Take it back. You're with your promoter. What does that mean?
So I had friends
Is that like a pimp?
No. Well, like kind of. And like the most like
you said no very aggressively.
I know,
and then you were kind of
but then it's like, wait, let me really think about it. So basically there's like promoters, they're like on Instagram or whatever, and they're always like DMing girls.
So like they get a certain they get some money for the number of people they bring.
Exactly.
Got it.
Yes.
Like a show.
But it was weird because the reason that I stopped clubbing was because they didn't want me as a person. They just wanted me as like what I looked like in a weird way, because like my friends, the club promoters would ask for all of the girls' Instagrams, and the girls I was friends with at the time wouldn't give them my Instagram because again, I was being silly and goofy and posting my stand-up and posting.
You're not half naked on your Instagram.
Exactly. Yeah. And so my friends, they would just send selfies of me or like photos of me and say that I didn't have a social media. And I was like, that's fucked up. Why? And I was like, oh, it's because they just want like bimbos. They don't want girls who like think a lot.
Or
you know?
like are creatives and stuff.
Because then they'll be the ones to realize.
You hear that, you dirty little sluts?
Guys, come on. Just start being silly and goofy on Instagram.
And you'll never go to a club again.
No, you won't get invited. That's how it works.
So how did you, because you had mentioned that you weren't that far from New York and you wanted to get into clubbing. Why clubbing?
It was
out of all.
frats were boring.
Okay, so because in all honesty, it's the same thing. I think that's rooted in the question of why comedy. So like, why out of all the things to do in Jersey and New York, why were you like, oh, this is fun? I like the music. I want to do the drugs. It was just the lifestyle.
I think it was the glamour of it all at first. It was a short stage. I didn't club for very long. I had friends in college who were doing it like all 4 years, and I always had like responsibilities, so I didn't have the same luxuries as my friends to be able to do it for that long. And I pretty quickly realized like, oh, this is not the place for me. Yeah, I remember there was this one time, I'm bi. I've been talking about a lot of guys lately, but I remember one time I was at this club and I made out with this girl and I look
all
up.
Of you?
Yeah, right?
Aren't all club girls bi?
Hey, but I look up and there was just this like group of men around me taking videos and
gross.
And that's when I was like, never again. Like, this is weird, and I feel really much so like just preyed on. And they're all
that's
also,
a
like,
huge violation.
100%, dude. And it's also just like not even fun, really, when you really look at it, because like, you know, when you're like sober and you look back on like your nights out and you're like, oh, that was just fun because I turned my brain off for hours. That's all it is. It's not, when you really look at it, it's like really loud music and people like getting up on you.
That's the thing is when I'm like, I can't. I remember we used to go, there's a club called Razzles back in Daytona. Shout out Razzles.
Ayo.
And it's a club in Daytona, so it's not an EDM club. It's the club you think it is. And you know that club you're picturing in your head? That's it. That's the one.
In Daytona, Florida.
Yeah, Daytona Beach, baby, 386. Shout out. But I just remember the music, and it was, you know, I love hip hop. I grew up listening to it, especially Southern hip hop, but it was just so loud. Yeah. And like everyone's like pushing on each other, and a lot of dudes there are super aggressive. Yeah. And so I just remember I'd go and I would stand in the corner, like, so there was a dance floor, and I would just stand against the wall. And then if someone, like a young lady would come to dance with me, I would just stand there and just be like, that's how I dance, was like, just like this.
And she'd be like all up on you and shit. Yeah.
Like,
what are you even going to do? Like, is it even, like, I feel like that's so symbolic of clubbing itself.
Yeah, it's like, what the fuck are we doing, man?
Exactly.
Like, I want to go home and play Xbox and do shots.
Because that sounds like such a better time. Now I'm way more of like, you couldn't pay me to go to a freaking club.
Do you still do psychedelics?
No.
Okay.
That had to end after college. That had to end. Now, if I partake in any types of drugs, it's just weed every once in a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because
I
you
try to
don't.
keep
Do you
that.
still drink?
Yeah, I never
Okay.
really particularly had that. Like
That's
I
what I was
never
gonna say. Because you never really started.
Yeah.
In,
I mean,
in the sense that,
yeah. I would drink like on the weekends with my friends. I still don't really think I have like a drinking issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, Brennan. But
What? What about your younger sister? What about? No, I'm just kidding.
she's doing quite all right. She has a boyfriend in Ohio.
What was that?
Yeah.
That was so weird. No, I'm just kidding. She brought it up. I was doing a callback. It's a thing we do in comedy.
It's a professional move.
Yeah. I didn't think you're gonna make it weird.
That's what comics do. We make everything weird.
Ain't
That's
that
what
the
we're
truth?
made. That's what we're made for.
What do you want to do? We've got time, about enough time for one more story. We can do DJ booth or campus cutie.
Oh,
I don't
let's
know
do
what that
Campus
even means.
Cutie. Campus
Okay.
Cutie is one of my tattoos.
Okay.
So there was this one time in college when I was hanging out with frat boys still, and that's just baby clubbing. That's just them. Yeah, it's just them getting you really drunk and then being like, oh, let's watch girls dance. And so there was a boy, and he was a little bit of a sleaze in my friend group. He would just get with everybody. And there was this one time that I got super drunk, and I walked up directly to him at a party and was just like, you know what? You white men with your blonde hair and your blue eyes, you think that you're this campus cutie. You're not the campus cutie that everyone thinks you are. I know exactly about you, Charlie. I won't say his real name. And so that became the biggest bit of all time.
Campus cutie.
Yeah. And we found this like little unicorn toy in my college house, and we were like, that's the real campus cutie. That's the cutest boy on campus. And then like we gave Campus Cutie an entire character, an entire storyline. A lot of people on my
Now
college.
you have it. Let me see.
It says, "Thank you, Campus Cutie."
Oh, it does, and it's got a
Yeah,
little
it's
unicorn.
Yeah.
Well,
Shout out Charlie.
Too bad for Charlie. How did he take it? Was he upset?
He the next day was like, I think Claire called me ugly last night. And he like confronted me about it, and I was like,
think Claire called me ugly.
I think she called me ugly, and it's like the worst thing he's ever heard. in
What
his
happened
life.
with the confrontation? What did he say? Was he like
He was like, that was kind
really
of,
hurtful?
are you serious? And I was like, shut up. I'm sorry.
Was Charlie an
but-
attractive man? Obviously, if he's sleeping with everybody.
I mean, he never tooted my horn.
Beep, beep.
But I was just, so Charlie did not take that very well.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And then he also didn't take it very well that like there was this unicorn that was essentially like making
Him.
fun of him.
Yeah.
And that like it was this big
You should have
joke.
given the unicorn to the gentlemen callers that you thought were super attractive.
Well, we ended up burning him alive. Not Charlie the unicorn.
Oh,
Yeah, and it was a whole ceremony.
less fun. But
Yeah,
so you turned him into an effigy.
Yeah.
And lit him on fire.
exactly. And that's the tale of Campus Cutie. And that was like my most iconic moment in college, I think.
When did you burn the unicorn?
The end of my junior year. We
Okay.
burned
Was it
him
a
in
big thing?
fire.
Did you turn it as
Yes. We had like an
Talk
entire
about it, yeah.
bonfire. Yeah. So we had like everybody in my friend group came, and we had
Was
this
it at a frat
bonfire.
house?
It was at my sorority house. I
You
was
were in a sorority.
Yes. I got kicked out of a sorority.
That sounds way cooler
For
than I
barking
was
at
in a
men.
sorority. Like a dog? Like
Yes.
actually like arr, arr, arr.
Yeah.
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 Nailed it.
Thank you. But yeah, so we had a bonfire in the back of my sorority house, and everybody prepared like a little speech to say goodbye to Campus Cutie, and we all took circles, and then I was the last one because it was like kind of my like
Yeah, it was
big
your thing,
bit.
yeah.
Yeah, and then I threw him in the fire.
No wonder you went viral.
hmm
This is you've got a knack for things. Doing
I've got a knack for finding really weird things,
Obscure
entertaining.
bits.
Yeah,
got a knack for obscure bits.
I'm a big knack for obscure bits. Yeah.
There we go. Plug everything one more time. Let everyone know where they can find you.
Intense Pair 667, Instagram and TikTok.
She's back.
Ayo.
We'll get you back up to 250 in no time.
Hopefully.
At Brennan T Comedy on all social media, BrennanTComedy.com. Thank you, everybody, so much for listening. I will be in Philly the 6th and the 7th of October. Come out to that. That's going to be a whole lot of fun. And then I got a couple shows in New York in October. So check out the website. And we'll talk to you all next week.
Thanks, Brennan.
Thank you.
It's been great.
That was fun.
Beautiful.